Blanca Canales Torresola, another supporter of Pedro Albizu Campos, was a white woman from Jayuya, whose family owned a large farm in Barrio Coabey. Her father, Don Rosario Canales, had been one of the founders of Jayuya and its first mayor in 1911. Her oldest brother was the well-known journalist, the playwright Nemesio Canales, and her other brother, Mario Canales, was a well-known member of the Popular Democratic Party who served for many years in the Puerto Rican legislature. Blanca, unlike Dominga, was raised with all the comforts of the upper middle class and received the best education available to the island had to offer. By the time she joined the Nationalist Party in 1932, just like Dominga, she had a college degree and was pursuing a graduate degree in social work at the University of Puerto Rico. According to what she wrote in 1967, she joined the Nationalist Party after listening to one of Albizu's speeches at the University of Puerto Rico. She was so impressed, she said, by Albizu's speech that she went to visit him at his home one evening. She needed to know whether he was the leader that she would want to follow. She found him at his home, trying to put a restless child to sleep, a rare occurrence in the patriarchal society she knew. She was also impressed by the respect and kindness with which he treated his wife and children, while discussing with her the problems of the colony and the solutions he envisioned. She left Albizu's home, she said, fully convinced that this was no ordinary man and that he was the leader Puerto Rico needed. Shortly thereafter, she invited him to the family farm in Coabey, where he would meet her cousins, Angelina, Elio, Griselio, and Doris Torresola, all of whom would become totally devoted to Albizu Campos over the next 18 years. 3 of them, as history has shown, would play major roles in the events of the 1950s. Between 1932 and 1950, Blanca taught school in Jayuya and then rose to direct a social work agency in her town. She was one of the few professional women of her period in Puerto Rico, and she also owned and drove a car. In fact, it was during one of these drives from San Juan to Jayuya that she learned from friends in Manatee that several of Albizu's escorts had been arrested the previous evening, October 26, 1950, as they made their way from Fajardo to San Juan. This arrest, as I uncovered during my research, proved to be the catalytic agent that unleashed the nationalist uprising of October 30, 1950, an event that would change Blanca's life and leave an indelible mark in the history of Puerto Rico. As she said in 1967, she spent the last weekend of October 27 to the 29th of 1950 reviewing the plans for the upcoming attack with her cousin Elio and Carlos Irizarry. They had been ordered by Albizu to take the town of Jayuya at noon on Monday, October 30th, 1950. The attack, as she explained later, had been premature, but had to begin when it did, because the authorities had been raiding homes and arresting nationalists on the pretext that they were responsible for the prison breakout at the state penitentiary the previous Saturday. There were also rumors that the government had plans to kill Albizu at the Fajardo rally on October 26, but had failed because Ruth Mary Reynolds had warned Albizu. The first confrontation between the nationalists and the police that morning, on the 30th, took place in Barrio Macana, Cañuelas, at dawn on October 30th, when Ponce nationalists were discovered carrying arms to a farm in Peñuelas. The police opened fire and the nationalists responded in kind. But Blanca would learn those details around 10 a.m. on Monday morning, as she and Elio and Carlos were preparing to lead the assault on Jayuya. Her specific assignments at Monday, she said, were to cut the cables, wires, and silence the communications center in town, and then declare the Republic from the balcony of the River Palace Hotel downtown. She would then have to join Elio and Carlos at City Hall in order to issue a joint proclamation of the Republic. She had trouble with the first mission, she said, because the tool she brought to cut the wires proved inadequate. But she used her pistol to order the telephone operator to close the place and go home. She completed the second mission without a problem by proclaiming the Republic from the balcony of the hotel, while she waved the Puerto Rican flag and urged passers-by to join the revolution. Around 1 p.m., while she was waiting for Elio, she was called away to drive a wounded Carlos Irizarry to a hospital in Utuado because the local clinic in Jayuya had denied him treatment. Intent on returning to the struggle, after she delivered Carlos to Utuado, she left her gun and the flag with one of the rebels. She was arrested during her drive back that afternoon. She was then taken to the District Court of Ponce for interrogation, and from there sent to the District Court of Arecibo, where she was charged with 11 crimes, most of which she had not committed, and sent to the women's wing of the Arecibo District Prison without the right to bail. There were many violations of people's rights during this period. The next day, the National Guard bombarded the town of Jayuya from the air and forced Elio and his men to retreat to the outskirts of Jayuya. Ground troops sent after them forced them to surrender on November 2nd. 21 Jayuyans, including Blanca, were subsequently tried and convicted of many crimes and sentenced to life in prison. In her case, she was additionally convicted of causing the destruction of many municipal properties, as well as the post office and military recruitment center and other federal buildings in Jayuya. For the federal crimes, she was sentenced to an additional term of 10 years. That sentence, however, was reduced upon appeal, and she ultimately served 5.5 years at the Women's Reformatory in Alderson, West Virginia, before she was returned to Puerto Rico in November 1956 to begin serving her life sentence at the women's prison in Vega Alta, Puerto Rico. She would have died there had it not been for the fact that the Puerto Rican legislature abolished the Sedition Statute, Law 53, in 1957, 1 year after the United States Supreme Court abolished the Smith Act. A new PDP administration led by Roberto Sanchez Vilella released Blanca and others similarly convicted by law on Law 53 in 1967. Nearly 60 years old at the time of her release, and plagued with a bad heart and many other health issues, she was in no condition to find work, even if anyone had been willing to hire her. Fortunately, her younger sister Guarina, a fierce advocate of statehood for Puerto Rico, gave her a place to stay until she could find a place of her own. This is part of the history of all of Puerto Rico, how the families are divided. She also sold part of the farm in Coave in order to help Blanca to cover her expenses. With dwindling resources, Blanca lived another 30 years, yet never wavered in her efforts to liberate Puerto Rico. During the early 1990s, according to Peggy Young Bliss of the San Juan Star, Blanca was living in a government-subsidized home for the aging in Atorrey, a borough of San Juan. There, she was kept under strict surveillance, phone tapped and carefully watched by an undercover policewoman. She was nearly 90 years old when she died in 1996. Unlike Dominga, she was eulogized by many who recognized her as a great patriot and heroine. In sum, it is likely that the paths of these two women, socially and racially different, would have ever crossed had it not been for their decisions to join the struggle to free Puerto Rico, espoused by Pedro Albizu Campos. Dominga de la Cruz, the poor black orphan from Mayagüez, became a symbol of bravery when she ran into the line of fire to rescue the Puerto Rican flag, while Blanca Canales abandoned a life of comfort and a good career in order to pursue the independence of her homeland. In the process, she became a heroine in the eyes of those who wish to see Puerto Rico free. Thank you.